High school teacher in Brownsburg, Indiana, is saying he was forced to resign after he challenged the district's policy on transgender students. That policy requires teachers to address these students by their preferred name instead of their birth name. Teacher John Kluge says that violates both his religious beliefs and his constitutional rights. I recently spoke to both Mr. Kluge and his attorney, Ross Stovall, and I began by challenging Mr. Stovall on whether the school district really violated his client's rights. You can't use the classroom for anything you want to do speech-wise. I mean, you are under contract with the school, so if someone who's a teacher of anthropology suddenly wants to get up and talk about his or her view on, you know, Nazism or creationism, you can say, well, that's my free speech right. Well, yeah, okay, but you're under contract with the school to teach, you know, Spanish, so you can be fired for that, correct?
Right. Well, yeah, to your point, we believe there's a constructed discharge here, that they unreasonably threw out an accommodation that was in place. They actually had a written agreement with John to allow John to actually express his convictions by using only last names of all the students. That reasonable accommodation was tossed out by the administration after the school year, and he was told he either resigns, he follows the line of the school using these transgender names that were not, as he said, the birth names, or he will be suspended and then terminated. Those were the choices. That's a Hobson's choice. So from the standpoint of our legal position, we believe we have an illegal discharge. That's number one. But number two, the issue, the constitutional issue is, can the government compel him to violate his religious beliefs? There is sufficient federal law that says that they must make a reasonable accommodation if he has religious beliefs. And those cases are really well established around the country. We believe this is a new one, though, because this deals with an insidious effort by a governmental entity, if you will, a school paid by taxpayer funds. So we see this as a different wrinkle than we've seen before in the cases coming up.
Well, I think the studies on transgenderism are very difficult. First of all, there's no real long, peer-reviewed study that we can look at with, like, whether hormone blockers. We don't need to get into that because that's not really relevant here. But all I'll say is that there has been a really explosive growth in kids calling themselves transgender. And just in this British study, they went from, I think it's 94 referrals as gender dysphoria is a technical term, from 2009 to 2010, 94 at this clinic, to now between 2016 and 2017, 1,986 referrals, including some of those for children younger than 6 years of age. Now, a lot of people are thinking that this could be gender-affirming treatments or actually encourage kids who call themselves transgender. Most of them grow out of it. That's just the way it is. Most of them grow out of it. But also other studies, adolescent health journals saying that they are 2 to 3 times more likely to suffer from depression, suicide, other mental disorders. Very difficult. So, John, are you acting in part out of concern for these kids, thinking that they're getting bad advice and from their parents or others?
I do really care about these students, and that is why I wanted to kind of sidestep this whole issue. I wanted to focus on teaching the kids orchestra, on being able to reach out to them, and I have been able to, over the course of this year, cultivate friendly relationships with my students, and including these transgender students of mine. And I really want to continue teaching there. I love these kids, and I want to continue that work I've done.
John, what was the reaction from the other students? They must have heard about this. What grade are we talking about here?
9 through 12.
Okay, so what was the reaction of the other students when this student suddenly changed names in the middle of the term?
Well, in my class, because I've been referring to students by their last name only, it hasn't really been a topic that's been discussed. We focused on working together as a team to create beautiful music. And so I think I've been successful in being able to create a culture in my classroom that they are respecting each other, and I expect them to, and I care for them and do respect them all.
All right. And Ross, the suit being filed in federal court?
Well, we hope not. We hope that the school board at 6:30 on Monday recants. Alliance Defending Freedom brought me into this as an allied attorney to try to avoid we always try to avoid litigation. If we can get accommodations handled, we do that. That's what John wants. That's what we want. But if that
he wants to go
happen,
back and teach. John wants to go back and teach and have his job back.
Absolutely.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Okay, stay with me here. The Board of Representatives in the city of Stamford, Connecticut, has voted to ban the use of gender pronouns from its governing rule book. That means people can't be referred to as he or she in the city's written rules. Don't they have bigger problems in Connecticut? One of those who proposed the change is my guest, Raven Mathern, the state's first openly transgender elected official. Welcome, Raven. It's great to see you. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so get me up to speed on the pronouns, because in New York, you have to use, you can't use he or her or she or him at all. I guess you have to use Z or her, Z-E or H-I-R, or you can use they or their, and you can be fined if you don't use the right pronoun in New York. You actually can be fined. No. So you're not quite there. So explain your situation.
To be honest, I'm not too up to date on New York State's laws, as my stuff happens in Connecticut. But really, my goals here, the issues that we were trying to tackle were simply the rules of the board. We're not looking to ban terminology. Quite the opposite. I think I lead the charge in allowing people to use their pronouns. I don't want to tell someone, no, you can't be a he, and no, you can't be she. Quite the opposite. Use what makes you happy. Use what makes you feel right.
But you require that people refer to you as, now when did you transition? When was that exactly?
So I don't like to use the word require. I prefer, if someone else is going to use gendered nouns for me that I don't like, I'm not going to sit there and take offense to it. I mean, there are bigger issues at hand than this. This issue, what we were doing is, and I hesitate to even say we, because when I got on the board, when I was elected, the first issues I wanted to tackle were, and we are tackling, are issues of development not being handled responsibly in our city and things of that nature.
Yeah, crime,
these are the issues
taxes.
These are what are actually important.
Yeah, you know what, Raven, you know what I was thinking? I grew up in Connecticut in Glastonbury, not too far, but
nice.
you know,
Beautiful area.
A little bit of a drive from you. But Connecticut has so many problems.
Yes.
Losing jobs, losing businesses, taxes. Like, I don't care if you're transgender, gay, straight, whatever you are, but if you're in politics in Connecticut, save Connecticut. Because Connecticut is going down the tubes, in my view. So when I read articles about pronoun changes for the rule book and Stanford, I like, my God,
I keep seeing my face in the
newspaper
newspaper and laughing. I think it's a little ridiculous, to be quite honest. When I was elected, there were other members of the board. We were in the middle of reviewing all of our rules. There was, I want to say something like 30 rule changes we were doing. I could be wrong about that, but there were quite a large number of them. And this was one proposed by a couple other people on the board, both Democrats and Republicans, that were looking at it and saying, oh, I guess this doesn't really fit, considering who was just elected. What can we do to make the rules more appropriate? So
you weren't even the real driving force behind this. There was some, like,
correct. I was not
feel good, do good other members of the board. That's wild, given all the things that Stamford and all the other towns and cities in Connecticut face. That's actually incredible. Like, you could be someone who just tries to work to fix Stamford instead of focusing on pronouns, which it seems to be that you don't even really, you're not really even all that worked up about it.
Well, what I think is funny is it keeps being said, oh, that we're focusing on it. And meanwhile, when we were at the board of at the January 2nd meeting of the Board of Reps, the meeting lasted, I want to say, maybe an hour 45 or something along those lines. And there were a lot of heated discussions. There are a lot of controversial topics that we're trying to tackle right now. And this was a tiny little asterisk next to it saying, oh, we got a transgender